Hi guys, welcome to Relationship Stories with TaleTime. The first story is titled, Daughter Caught My Wife Cheating with Coworker While I Was in the Hospital with Cancer, so I exposed her affair to everyone and divorced her. The story starts like this. Hey Reddit, this is a tough story for me to share, but I really need to get it off my chest. I, 45M, have been married to my wife Sarah, 43F, for 20 years. We have a daughter Emma, 17F, who is the light of my life. For the majority of our marriage, I truly believed we had a great relationship. Sarah and I met in college, fell head over heels, and got married soon after graduation. We were always a team, supporting each other through job changes, moves, and the ups and downs of raising a kid. I thought we were unshakable. That illusion started to crumble about 6 months ago when I was diagnosed with colon cancer. It was a total shock as I've always been relatively healthy. The doctors caught it early but said I would need surgery and chemotherapy. Sarah was by my side when I got the news, holding my hand and assuring me we would get through it together. The first few months of treatment were rough, but Sarah really stepped up, taking me to appointments, keeping track of my meds, and making sure Emma and the house were taken care of. I was so grateful to have her as my rock. But as the chemo side effects got worse and I spent more time at the hospital, something shifted. Sarah started picking up extra shifts at work, leaving before I woke up and coming home after I was asleep. She was constantly texting on her phone and would change the subject if I asked her about it. Our previously active sex life disappeared. I tried not to be suspicious, reasoning that she was just stressed and worried about me. I was sick and lost in my own world. When I did see Sarah, our conversations revolved exclusively around cancer and treatment. She wouldn't look me in the eye, and was impatient if I wanted to talk about anything else. I felt more alone than ever. Then 1 month ago, I landed in the hospital with a bad infection, one of the chemo complications they warned me about. I was there for over a week, barely coherent and unable to use my phone much. Sarah only visited twice, for less than an hour, saying work was crazy. I remember lying in that hospital bed between fever dreams, wondering how we got so disconnected. Little did I know, the reason for her distance and odd behavior was about to be exposed in the most painful way imaginable. As I mentioned, I was stuck in the hospital for over a week battling a serious infection related to my cancer treatment. I was in and out of consciousness, drifting between 4 antibiotics and restless naps. The few times I managed to text Sarah, her responses were short and vague: at work, can't talk, with a client, call you later. She never called. Honestly, I was too out of it to dwell much on my wife's distance. I figured we would sort things out once I was recovered and home. On day 6 of my hospital stay, I got a panicked call from Emma that changed everything. Dad, I went to the house to grab your backup phone charger and some clothes for when you're discharged. You'll never believe what I walked in on. Emma's voice was shaking. I could hear the shock and anger through the phone. My heart started pounding as she described the scene: Sarah in our bed with a man, both of them half naked and scrambling to cover up when Emma burst in. She recognized the guy as Sarah's coworker Dave, someone she often complained about as incompetent and lazy. I felt like I was going to throw up. I started screaming at Mom, asking how she could do this to you, but she just kept saying it's not what it looks like, and yelling at me to leave. So I took out my phone and started taking pictures of them. I have proof, Dad. I can't believe she would hurt you like this when you're fighting for your life. Emma was crying now. I didn't know what to say. My mind was reeling, shock, rage, devastation all slamming into me at once. The pain in my daughter's voice broke my heart. How could Sarah blow up our family like this? Over the next few hours, Emma sent me the photos she had taken. It was like ripping off a bandage. Part of me didn't want to see the evidence of my wife's betrayal, but I knew I needed to face the truth head on. The images of Sarah and Dave in various states of undress, in my bed, are seared into my brain forever. Emma visited me that night, eyes red and puffy from crying. As painful as it was, we went through the whole story together. Apparently this wasn't the first time she had caught suspicious behavior from Sarah. A few weeks ago, I saw Mom kissing some man in the car when she dropped me off at practice. When I confronted her later, she said it was just a friend and I must have seen wrong. I wanted to believe her, so I didn't say anything to you, Emma confessed, looking guilty. Then last week I saw a text on her phone from someone saved as work emergency, but the message said, I can't wait to feel you again. When I asked who she was talking to, she freaked out and said I was invading her privacy by looking at her phone. As Emma revealed each new detail, I felt like I was being punched in the gut over and over. The signs of Sarah's infidelity had been right in front of me for weeks, but I was too preoccupied with cancer to put it together. But my brave daughter had seen the truth even when I couldn't. I never thought Mom was really cheating. I guess I just didn't want to believe it. But after seeing her and that scumbag in your bed, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. You don't deserve this, Dad. I'm so sorry, Emma said, squeezing my hand. Tears were streaming down my face as I pulled her into a long hug. This is not your fault, honey, not one bit. Your mom made her choices. Thank you for being honest with me. I know this isn't easy for you either, I said, feeling so grateful for the incredible young woman she had become. I spent the rest of that hospital stay alternating between grief and rage. How could Sarah step out on our marriage while I was fighting for my life? Did she think I was too sick and weak to figure it out? Had she even thought about what this would do to Emma? The woman I had built a life with now felt like a total stranger. I didn't tell Sarah that I knew. I wanted to confront her in person, to look in her eyes as I asked how she could betray our vows so coldly. I needed to see if there was any shred of remorse or explanation. Deep down, I already knew our marriage was over. But first, I had to hear her say it to my face. When I was finally discharged from the hospital, Emma picked me up. We hardly spoke on the drive home, both of us lost in thoughts of Sarah's betrayal. I could see the pain and anger on my daughter's face, and it broke my heart all over again. She was too young to be dealing with the fallout of her mother's selfish choices. As we pulled into the driveway, I took a deep breath. Emma, I want you to know that no matter what happens between your mom and me, I will always be here for you. We'll get through this together, I said, putting a hand on her shoulder. She just nodded, eyes shiny with unshed tears. Walking into the house, I was hit with a wave of memories, framed photos of our wedding day, family vacations, holidays together. It all felt like a cruel joke now. Sarah was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. She looked up with a tight smile when we came in. Welcome home, honey. I'm making your favorite soup, she said, like everything was normal. Like she hadn't shattered our family into a million pieces. I couldn't even look at her. Emma, could you please give your mother and I some privacy? We need to talk, I said quietly. She gave me a long hug before heading upstairs, shooting Sarah a glare on the way. Once we were alone, I turned to Sarah. I know about the affair. Emma caught you and Dave in our bed while I was in the hospital, I said, my voice shaking with barely controlled rage and anguish. Sarah froze, eyes wide. For a long moment she just stared at me, opening and closing her mouth like she couldn't find the words. Then the excuses started pouring out. It's not what you think. Dave and I are just friends. He was comforting me because I was so stressed about you being sick. Nothing happened, she said frantically. I laughed harshly. Do you normally take your clothes off with friends in our marital bed? Emma took pictures, Sarah. I've seen exactly what happened, I said, disgust dripping from every word. Her face crumpled. I'm so sorry, I never meant to hurt you. It was a mistake, I was lonely and scared with you being gone all the time. Please, can't we just forget this happened and move on? Sarah pleaded, reaching for my hand. I yanked away from her touch like it burned me. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store, not screwing another man while your husband is fighting cancer. How long has this been going on? And don't you dare lie to me again, I seethed. Sarah started crying, but I felt nothing. A few months, she whispered. It started right after your diagnosis. I was a mess and Dave was there for me. But it doesn't mean anything, I swear. Months. My wife had been cheating on me for months while I went through the darkest time in my life. The pain was indescribable, like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. If it didn't mean anything, why did you keep going back to him? Why not focus on being there for me and Emma? I needed you, but you were too busy getting your thrills with another man to even visit me in the hospital, I said, all the hurt and anger boiling over. Sarah didn't seem to have an answer for that. She just kept saying she was sorry, that she loved me, that we could work it out. Empty words from a woman I no longer recognized. I want a divorce, I said flatly, cutting off her increasingly desperate pleas. You threw away our marriage the second you betrayed me. I will never be able to trust you again. Emma and I deserve better. Sarah's face twisted in anger. You can't take Emma from me, I'm her mother. We can fix this, don't throw away 20 years over one indiscretion, she said, voice rising. The audacity of this woman. One indiscretion? You cheated on me for months. You don't get to play the victim here. If you wanted to keep your family, you shouldn't have stepped out on your sick husband and humiliated our daughter, I practically spat. I was done with this conversation, done with her excuses and crocodile tears. I'm going to stay with my brother for a while. I expect you to be gone by the time I get back. You can explain to Emma why her home has been destroyed, I said coldly. I packed a bag, called my brother to let him know I was coming, and walked out with my head held high. But as soon as the door closed behind me, I collapsed against it, heaving sobs racking my whole body. The future I had always pictured was gone. Now I had to focus on rebuilding for myself and my daughter. Sarah's affair had cut me to the bone, but it wouldn't break me. I would get through this the same way I beat cancer, with determination, the support of my loved ones, and faith that better days were ahead. It was time to start over. After a sleepless night at my brother's place, I returned home to confront Sarah again and start the process of untangling our lives. I had hoped she would respect my wishes and leave, but I wasn't surprised to find her still there, puffy-eyed and pleading. "I'm not going anywhere, this is my house too. We need to talk about this, you can't just decide our marriage is over without even trying to work it out," Sarah said defiantly. I couldn't believe her nerve. "I'm not the one who decided our marriage was over, you did that when you started sleeping with your coworker. I'm just facing the reality you created," I said, exhausted by her inability to take accountability. Seeing that trying to reason with Sarah was pointless, I focused on practicalities. "I've already made an appointment with a divorce lawyer. I suggest you do the same. In the meantime, one of us needs to move out. Since Emma needs stability, I think it should be you," I said firmly. Sarah glared at me. "If you think I'm going to roll over and let you dictate the terms of this divorce, you're delusional. I'll fight you for every penny, and for custody of Emma. Good luck convincing the court you can take care of her alone while you're sick," she said venomously. Her casual weaponization of my cancer, the thing she had used as an excuse to cheat in the first place, made me see red. In that moment, any shred of love or sympathy I had for this woman turned to dust. "Keep pushing me and you'll regret it," I said with quiet rage. "If you want to play dirty, I'll air out all your filthy laundry for everyone to see. I'm sure our friends and family would love to know how you betrayed your sick husband and broke your daughter's heart." Something in my face must have told Sarah I wasn't bluffing. For the first time, a flicker of fear passed over her expression before it hardened again into a mask of anger. "Do what you want, no one will believe you anyway," she scoffed before storming out. But I followed through on my promise. That day, I sat down and wrote out a long message detailing Sarah's affair and deception, sparing no details. Fighting past the pain and humiliation, I hit send, blasting it out to our entire social circle, friends, family, even some of Sarah's coworkers. I had no desire to play the pick-me dance, to beg people to take my side. I simply laid out the facts, from the months of distant and suspicious behavior to Emma walking in on her and Dave. I talked about the pain of discovering her betrayal while fighting for my life. It was the rawest, most vulnerable thing I had ever written. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, my phone was blowing up with messages of shock, sympathy, and unwavering support. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to offer condolences and encouragement. My family was horrified, my parents and siblings immediately jumping in with offers to help with lawyer fees, watching Emma, anything I needed. Sarah, on the other hand, was bombarded with scorn and judgment from all sides. Her own family reamed her out for her selfish behavior. Her friends dropped her en masse, disgusted by her actions. Female coworkers who had been friendly with her were now giving her the cold shoulder, while the men suddenly saw her as an easy target for creepy propositions. Her reputation was trashed overnight. Mutual friends reported that Sarah was on the warpath, alternating between playing the victim and trashing me to anyone who would listen. She tried to spin it that I was an absent, neglectful husband who had driven her into another man's arms. That I was using my cancer as an excuse to control and isolate her. But next to the proof of her months-long affair and abandonment of me in my darkest hour, her flimsy justifications fell flat. The more she tried to deflect and point fingers, the more unhinged and unsympathetic she appeared. Our social circle had made their judgment, and I was vindicated. Still, I took no pleasure in my wife's fall from grace. I was just grimly determined to push forward with the divorce and make a fresh start. I met with my new lawyer and began the arduous process, compiling financial documents, negotiating asset division and custody arrangements, disentangling 20 years of marital property and history. It was almost as painful and exhausting as chemotherapy, but I faced it with the same single-minded resolve. This was the path to my new life. With each meeting and signed document, my future started taking shape. I was determined to keep full custody of Emma, to give her stability and strength as we healed. To rebuild my career and life on my own terms, without Sarah's toxic influence. It wasn't the life I had planned, but I was slowly learning that sometimes the most meaningful happiness is forged in the crucible of pain. As I predicted, Sarah did not make the divorce process easy. Fueled by anger and resentment over her tarnished reputation, she seemed determined to drag out the proceedings and fight me on every detail. Her pettiness and entitlement knew no bounds. In our first official mediation, Sarah shocked me by demanding full custody of Emma and refusing any visitation for me. Her reasoning? That a sick man undergoing chemo couldn't possibly provide a stable home for a teenage girl. I saw red at her blatant attempt to use my illness as a weapon. Are you serious? You were barely around for Emma even before you started cheating, always pawning her off on me while you stayed late with your boyfriend. Now you want to paint yourself as supermom? I said incredulously. My lawyer jumped in with the facts, that I had been Emma's primary caretaker long before my diagnosis, that there was significant evidence of Sarah's affair and neglectful behavior, and that Emma herself had expressed a strong preference to live with me full-time. Sarah's lawyer barely masked his eye roll at her demands. It was clear she had no leg to stand on, but was determined to be as difficult as possible. The mediator suggested we table the custody discussion until emotions had cooled and more concessions could be made. Next, Sarah tried to bleed me dry financially. Despite being a high earner with significant savings of her own, she demanded alimony and a lopsided split of our assets in her favor. Once again, her justification was my cancer, that I likely wouldn't be returning to work anytime soon and she deserved to maintain her lifestyle. I nearly laughed in her face. You're seriously asking me to fund your affair? To reward you for stepping out on me during the lowest point in my life? Not a chance. My lawyer backed me up, presenting evidence of Sarah's ample personal accounts and arguing that her infidelity precluded her from any spousal support. We made it clear that we would take it to trial if necessary, where a judge would see her demands as the greedy, vindictive cash grab they were. Seeing she was outmatched, Sarah eventually agreed to a more equitable division, but not without weeks of stalling and petty arguments. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. Despite the financial and emotional toll of Sarah's games, I refused to sink to her level or let her see me crumble. I poured my energy into being present for Emma, staying on top of my health and recovery, and leaning on the support of friends and family. Emma was my rock through it all. She never wavered in her love and loyalty, even as Sarah tried to manipulate her with guilt trips and gaslighting. My heart broke every time Emma came home from a visitation in tears over Sarah's emotional abuse. We started going to family therapy to process our shared trauma in a healthy way. After what felt like an eternity, the divorce was finally settled. As expected, I got full physical and legal custody of Emma, with Sarah granted supervised visitation contingent on her getting individual counseling. We kept our respective retirement accounts and personal property, splitting only our shared assets down the middle. Sarah made a last-ditch attempt to drag things out by contesting the agreement, but the mediator shut her down swiftly. Walking out of the courthouse after the final hearing, I felt like I could breathe fully for the first time in over a year. The weight of Sarah's betrayal and abuse was finally off my shoulders. Emma and I clung to each other, both crying and laughing at the same time. It felt like a new beginning. That night, we had a quiet celebration at home with my closest family. Surrounded by the people who had held me up and believed in me through the darkest times, I felt a profound sense of gratitude and hope. I had lost so much: my health, my marriage, the future I thought I had locked in. I had gained an unbreakable bond with my amazing daughter. As I looked around at the smiling faces of my loved ones, I knew I would be okay. More than okay, I was excited to build a new life on my own terms, one free from lies and toxicity. I had fought like hell for this second chance, and I wasn't going to waste a single moment. Raising my glass, I offered a toast. To new beginnings and to healing. Emma and I are so grateful for each of you. Cheers to a brighter future ahead. Our little family of 2 had been through the ringer, but we had emerged stronger and more united than ever. I knew as long as I had her by my side, I could face anything life threw at me. Update. After the divorce was finalized, Emma and I took some much-needed time to heal and regroup. We went on a long road trip, just the 2 of us, revisiting some of our favorite childhood vacation spots and making new memories along the way. It was during one of our heart-to-hearts on the open road that Emma brought up the idea of me writing a book about our experience. At first, I laughed it off. Who would want to read about my sorry love life? But the more I thought about it, the more the idea grew on me. If our story could help even one person feel less alone in their pain, wouldn't that make it all worth sharing? So I started writing. Every night after Emma went to bed, I'd pour myself a whiskey and sit down at the computer, letting the words flow out of me. I wrote about the early days of my relationship with Sarah, how young and in love we were. I wrote about the slow deterioration of our marriage, the red flags I ignored. I held nothing back in recounting the devastation of her affair and the brutal divorce battle that followed. But more than just a chronicle of my failed marriage, the book became a tribute to the incredible support system that got me through it. I wrote about my fierce love for Emma, how her strength and resilience inspire me every day. I wrote about my ride-or-die friends and family who showed up for me in ways I never could have imagined. Writing that book was the catharsis I didn't know I needed. With each chapter, I felt lighter, like I was shedding the baggage of my trauma one page at a time. And when it was finally done, when I held that first printed copy in my hands, I cried tears of joy and relief. To my shock, the book took off. It started with friends and family buying copies, then their friends, then book clubs and support groups. Soon I was getting emails from readers all over the country who said my words had given them hope and courage in their own battles. I even did a few local TV interviews and book signings. Seeing the impact of my story firsthand, I knew I couldn't stop there. I started volunteering with a cancer support group, mentoring other patients and their families through the ups and downs of treatment. I became an advocate for survivors of infidelity, sharing my hard-won wisdom on how to rebuild after betrayal. As for Sarah, she didn't take the book's success well. She actually had the nerve to threaten legal action, claiming I was defaming her and airing private details. Luckily, my lawyer shut that down quick, reminding her that the truth is an absolute defense to defamation. Last I heard, she had quit her job and moved away, chasing some new poor sap she met online. I wish them both the best, truly. Life isn't perfect these days, but it's pretty damn good. I'm 5 years cancer-free and counting. Emma is thriving in college, studying to be a therapist so she can pay forward the support we received. I'm in a new relationship with a wonderful, honest woman who loves me for exactly who I am, baggage and all. Looking back, I hardly recognize the shell of a man I was during those dark days of sickness and betrayal. But I'm grateful for every painful lesson, every scar. They remind me of my own strength, of how far I've come. And they remind me to cherish the people who stand by me through thick and thin. So to anyone out there going through their own version of hell, know that you are stronger than you think. Know that you deserve love and loyalty, and nothing less. Know that no matter how bleak things seem, there is always hope on the other side. Keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep leaning on your tribe, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. I won't lie and say it's easy. There were days I wanted to give up, to let the pain swallow me whole. But I'm living proof that you can survive even the deepest wounds. Not just survive, but thrive. Emma and I still talk every day about how blessed we are, how much richer our lives are for what we've overcome together. She is the light of my life, my reason for fighting. Here are my thoughts about the story, guys. I can't even fathom the betrayal of a spouse cheating during a cancer battle, and then to have the audacity to weaponize that illness in the divorce. Some people's capacity for cruelty never ceases to amaze me. But the way Op handled it all with such integrity and courage, always putting his daughter first, is truly inspiring. And to channel that trauma into a book that's now helping countless others heal? That's the ultimate comeback. Sending all my respect and admiration to Op and his daughter. You two are warriors and an inspiration to us all. Keep living your best lives.